Maya Angelou said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." This is the Producers Lounge podcast. Welcome back for Season 2, Episode 3, hosted and produced by GreaterAndGrander.com. On this week's episode, we're chatting with Nicholas Hollander, who has written and produced 90s animated classics including Animaniacs and Tiny Toons. He still works today, developing his new show, The Whodats, now looking for financiers. Here now is my conversation with Nicholas Hollander.
Yeah,
So
I actually.
I hope I don't smell bad because I just had some kimchi.
No, you're fine. You're good.
No giggling.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining. So you're in New York. Are you, out of curiosity, are you in New York City or upstate New York?
I am in the most amazing spot. I am in New York City, but I am on the Long Island Sound in this tiny little island called City Island, which is off of the Bronx. And it's people think of it as just a restaurant road where you get fried seafood.
Uh-huh.
But there's homes and I look out to Connecticut and beyond.
That's great. Actually, I lived actually in Connecticut on Long Island Sound. I lived in Stamford growing up. So.
I grew up right across from you in Oyster Bay.
Oh, nice. That's right around Great Gatsby area too. So
yes, that's exactly Great Gatsby area with exactly the Twin Harbors and everything.
Yeah. So thank you for jumping on. I'm curious. I want to go ahead and dive in. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in first I grew up in Hollis, Queens. I was a city boy until about age 10, 11. And then we went to Oyster Bay. And my dad was violinist, concertmaster at Toscanini, the NBC Symphony Orchestra, associate concertmaster. And then he was on NBC symphonies and bands, and he was with Charlie Parker, and he was with Frank Sinatra, and he was with everybody. Even when you hear the song "Stand By Me," you're hearing him. He played like 4 parts there. And my brother was a classical pianist. Boom, 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 Lauren Hollander. So I was the bum.
So you were born in the trunk, though, from the sound of it.
Yeah, I'm born in the trunk. They were doing all their things, and I just did my own thing, and I always made up stories and fantasies and just sort of drifted away. And during the summer, we spent in Mackinac Beach on Long Island, on this beautiful sandy beach looking out at Connecticut. And that's where most of my experiences, well thought out experiences, journeys and trips and magic rowboats and everything.
That's awesome. What was the first story you remember writing?
Well, that's a story in itself. I'm dyslexic. I don't know if that, you know what that means. I see pages and words go every which way up and down and sentences fall off the book. So I couldn't read well. I couldn't keep up with the class. So when book report time came, I made up the story. I made up the author. And I did it from about 4th grade to 11th grade, junior in high school, when the teacher said, "I know what you're doing, and I think you should keep doing it." And I did.
Oh, that's awesome. It's great that you had like encouraging teachers who pushed you along and also didn't rat you out from the sound of it.
I know. Well, I graduated with 68 people. Tiny classes in Oyster Bay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So then once you graduated, where did you go from there? Were you looking at college, or were you concerned that the dyslexia would hold you back?
I had already made my surf movies. I would go surfing, and then after I'm surfing, I'd take movies and then edit them together.
Oh, wow.
So I went from high school to hanging out, and then finally a fellow named Michael Cooper Smith said, "I know where you should go," and he sent me into the city, into Manhattan, to get a job. And the job was to be a messenger for a sound editing house called Dick Lafsky's Music House, way back when. And I saw the machines they were working, and I delivered cans of film, and I watched what they did with the film. And I said, I know how to do that. Next thing I knew, within months, I was editing sound effects and editing music, which was library music. Then one day, I was editing sound effects for a commercial that was about a American Motors Javelin. I don't know if you could possibly remember that car, but that was a sporty car back in the 70s. And the spot was about a drive-in movie, and then there was a Javelin in the drive-in movie, and we hear the voices going, "Oh, Mary. Oh, Johnny. Oh, Mary. Oh, Johnny." And that's my sound effect. It's supposed to be the movie. And I gave it, the president or a CEO of that company was at the sound mix and said, "Let me hear that sound effect." And it was just, "Oh, Mary. Oh, Johnny. Oh, Mary. Oh, John." They dropped all the copy until the very end. They did a logo, American Motors, Javelin, and the voice. And it kept that. And that was my entry into writing copy and being a professional writer.
I can't believe that.
Isn't that funny?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I can't believe that, because that kind of, "Oh, Mary, oh, Johnny," that kind of back and forth, that is iconic. Like, I remember various like series and movies like parodying it, and that was you. That was your.
That was me. That was me.
Wow.
You would be surprised at what it was me. There was a commercial for Volkswagen where they were reading a will, and I did the music, and it was just hitting chords of a funeral. And they said, "Oh, that's great. Let's have that carry the spot." And it was like, for my son, I leave $14. For my wife, I leave the garage and part of the backyard. And for my accountant, who said every penny is worth everything, I leave my entire fortune of $5 million. And I made it to the Smithsonian. Organ music. And I don't play organ music, but I had my boss, who was a genius on his own, had at the time a Moog synthesizer, and that made a sound of anything you wanted. So I figured out the organ, and I would do chords, and it was very funeral-esque, deep down funeral sounds, and that's what they did. But I then became a copywriter. Until when I went from agency to agency, and then I discovered videotape. And at that time, they were using big fat videotape for television shows like the Perry Como Show and Star of Stars.
But like the old like Sony, 3/4 inch reels, right?
Yeah,
the ones that you would
bigger, 1-2 inch.
Oh wow!
Then Sony came out with a Porter Pack, which you put on your back and you carried it. And you had a little camera, and you carried the works on your back, and you would shoot. And I got to be co-director of the Manhattan Public Access Center. It was way at the beginning of cable. It was way at the beginning. It was called Sterling Manhattan Cable. Since then became Warner's, they bought it up. But I was co-director of the Access Center, and I had the good fortune to do a videotape of Allen Ginsberg in his East Village home, playing the hurdy-gurdy and reciting poetry. And that too made it to the Smithsonian. It's just wild. Everything has been serendipitous. I never planned on any of this, though I love it and I wanted it all to happen. But there I was with Allen Ginsberg and the Alternate Media Center, and we won a national endowment on the arts, which was a big deal, but I didn't know.
That is incredible. Like, so let me ask, just as far as timeline, you graduated from high school at what year? And then
do I have to tell you? Okay, 1965. 1965. That makes me 46.
Got it. So, and then at what point do you become
46?
Also 46.
At what point did I start doing? It was like I went from advertising. There was a little break. I did a little theater out in Nantucket, and then I came back and I was doing a puppet theater out in Long Island, out in Brookhaven, Long Island, and a fellow was associated with that, was a famous documentarian and teacher at NYU called George Stoney, brilliant man. He wanted me to come in and do some stuff with his class, and I did some stuff, and then they found out I also did sound mixing. So I did a class on sound mixing at NYU. And I'm going, what the hell? You know, I never do that. So I'm showing them how to work a sound mix. And NYU had I think it was 8 tracks and 2 tracks out. And I showed them how to mix their films. From there, I was writing. I was doing the public accent. I started writing things. I wrote a play that didn't go anywhere. But I kept writing and writing and writing. My oldest friend in life, Tom Mason, became an actor. And so we wrote it together. We wrote together. So we wrote together, and we wrote a couple of shows, and we sold one for ABC After School Special, which was a big deal, and with Dolores Morris, who was a big deal on ABC. And then I got a chance to write my first nighttime episode on a show called Jack and Mike, which Tom was in, of course. I was getting the lead hand. And I got an agent and a manager, Bill Tresh and Toby Haggerty. I got all these people, you know, and they're all, I didn't mean any of this to happen. I was still trying to figure out how to write it, you know, how to do punctuation. And from that point on, I was writing, and I got a chance to write a song for a documentary called Gizmo. At that time, it was called Eureka. And it was all about inventions. And I wrote a song called Benjamin Lee, which was a talking blue thing that took a lot of their footage that they couldn't use and put it into one song. Then they gave me 2 more songs to write. I did that. And they said, you know, you're pretty funny. Would you like to rewrite this narration script? So again, with the Porter Pack, put the Porter Pack on the moviola, recorded the whole film, went home and worked on each scene and tried to improve the script and make it funny or make it dry. And sometimes dry is more funny. But one thing I always did, and I still do it, I try to find those moments of heart that lift you up. So the funny is funnier, and the moments of heart lifts you higher. And I think that's been my success. I think people like me because of the heart.
Can you give us an example of like what was the most difficult issue or difficult episode that you found where you had to really stretch in order to find the heart in a scene?
Well, back then it was with, you have certain in police drama and detective drama and that kind of thing. You have a certain story, a showrunner gives you a certain story. You have to hit all the points. Right. So I would always try to put in a point where with silence, or I would write, she looks at him, he looks back at her. They acknowledge and go forward. And those lift you up. But here's, I think you'll like this story. I was always writing and sent out to Los Angeles from where I lived in Soho. Well, Tribeca at that time. I went out to Los Angeles to work, and then back to New York, and Los Angeles, and back to New York. So I said, I'm going to go to Los Angeles. Go out to Los Angeles, and I go meet my agent's equivalent there in Los Angeles, and I start handing in spec scripts and all the things that young people do. And I was ahead of the game because I didn't go to college. I didn't go to film school, didn't do any of that. So I was the young dude. And then got a few episodes here and there, nothing really good. And then came the writer's strike. And it was a writer's strike. We struck for over a year, during which time the Animation Guild did not strike. See, the Writers Guild and the Animation Guild, though they should be together, because the animation writers write more than live action writers per page,
Mhm.
and in the same format on the same programs and delivered in the same deadlines. They don't get that luxury, but we struck, and I couldn't get work in live action. So I
Mhm.
went to work in animation. And what happened in animation, I got a call from Michael Mann, my manager, who
Mhm.
goes, Nikki, I got a job, at least an interview for you. You got to go over to Warner Brothers and meet this girl, Sherry Stoner, and Tom something. So I go over there and I meet Sherry Stoner and Tom Ruger and shake hands, and they give me an assignment for this new show they're doing called Tiny Toon Adventures.
Uh-huh.
I take it home, I start writing, and it's pretty funny, and it's animation. So I never watched cartoons because I had an older brother and sister, so I never watched them. I didn't know, I knew who Bugs was, but I didn't know what Stretching Squash or any of the
And
dynamics of
this is
animation.
1990 by this point, right?
This is 88.
Oh, 88. Okay.
Yes. And they say I go back and I hand it in and I go back home, and it's 4th of July weekend. And I get a call from Tom Ruger, who was, as I found out, he's sort of like Warner Brothers head guy for the cartoons. He was
Oh.
the genius behind it all. And he said, Steven loved it. Meanwhile, I didn't know who Steven was. So I said, he did. Was that the guy I met in the hallway? No, Tom said, no, it was me you met in the hallway. Steven Spielberg. Had I known, had I had a clue, if somebody had told me you might be writing for Steven Spielberg, I would have choked. I would have totally choked because Steven was Jaws.
Mhm.
He was Jaws. And so I would have choked. So there I was hired to write a movie for them called How I Spent My Summer Vacation, which was the Tiny Toons characters.
Uh-huh.
And that was a big hit. So they told me to keep on for the next season. So I stayed on for the follow-up and all the rest of the Tiny Toons. And it was a great environment with just a small crew. And we'd all sit around and, bust each other's humps and just create and create and create. And we'd find humor from the walls, from the dust, from anything. It just happened. It was a great chemistry. And the show was a big, big hit. So Steven said, go ahead and make another. So Tom had us all start thinking, what kind of character would you like? And at the same time, he had the artist drawer, and he wanted to base 3 characters on his kids, which was 3 boys. And he had characters, and then they put ears on them. And they said, well, we got to put a girl in there. They put a girl in it, and that became Wacko, Yakko, and Dot. From there, all these side characters we invented became their own franchises, and they all started fitting together. And the genius of the original, mind you, the original Animaniacs, was that there was no set time to a cartoon. There was a half-hour slot, which in fact was 24 minutes.
Right.
Okay. So, but we would do different length cartoons. And Tom would piece them together like a collage to fit into that time.
This is
And then
Tom Ruger.
Tom Ruger, where he had holes, he would fill them in with things that we started right, or we had ideas. And between 5 or 6 writers, there was phenomenal material. That was the original, underlined original Animaniacs, which was all inspiration, not the new version, which is beautiful.
Okay, you're zooming by too fast because I grew up on this. I I grew up on Tiny Toons.
They landed on Mars, and no, go on.
But no, I like, maybe I'm showing my age, but I grew up in the era of Tiny Toons and Animaniacs, and me and my whole generation of filmmakers that I work with now fondly remember those cartoons. So I got to ask, what was that process of making Tiny Toons like? You said it was a handful of people in a small crew. Like, what was it like being in that writer's room? Were you given any guidelines, or were you just encouraged to go nuts? What was it like writing for Steven Spielberg? I got to ask all these questions. Like, that's
That
incredible.
was my first assignment after doing the Elmira and cleaning up after her pets or whatever it was. They
Mhm.
said they said, think of some cartoon ideas.
Uh-huh.
Now the cartoon. So I thought about one of the character goes out to fly a kite,
Mhm.
right? And the string breaks and the kite flies away, and a moth sees the kite, a butterfly moth, and starts to think it's his friend. And they start having a relationship. And for 7 or 8 minutes, is poignant, touching experience. Then a storm, and the kite gets broken and falls
Oh.
through. And the moth mourns, really mourns, grieves for his lost friend.
Uh-huh.
And it's very sad going toward the end. Then comes the little pig character, and he says, kite, and he picks it up, and it's a little glue. No, it was actually, I think it was Buster went out there and found it. And he put glue together, and he
Mhm.
put string, and he tied it together and started flying the kite again. And the kite was happy, and the moth flies, and we had a happy ending. And that was the kind of thing I became known for in that bunch, was
Mhm.
the asides from the main structure. I would do the characters plus. One time I had in Animaniacs gloves. Wacko was playing playing the piano, and his gloves ran away.
Uh-huh.
And they found themselves living the life in the nightlife. And then they found themselves getting cold and by a fireside where Skid Row warming their hands in front of the fire. And then finally they made their way back and finished the tune. And those kind of things fit in. And when you have poignant moments and slapstick, they're funnier. It's very Shakespearean in a way. He did the
Yeah.
opposite. He would put fun in before the bloody scene. And we had the bloody scene and then put heart in. And it worked. And I did that all through Tiny Toons, learning about cartoons, which to me was strange. But by the time the run was over, I picked it up, sort of. I kept watching. I was very kind of quiet during that first season because I didn't know shit about cartoons or animatics or things like that. I learned it. And it was like going to school then because animation is a lot more complex than shooting film in live action.
What
Much
were
more complex.
what were the most surprising things you learned in that first year, or
That
in the entire process?
if you want your cartoon character to blow bubbles from a straw into his drink, you have to write, he blows bubbles into the drink. Cut to the drink, bubbles rising. And you have to write these words out. Where
Mhm.
in action, the director would say, can you blow bubbles in your drink?
Mhm.
Cut, let's go to the next. You have to write everything. Then somebody starts drawing it in a rough storyboard and pick up sign and short things. I have one here somewhere. Um, Here it is. I have one here. It's a show that I'm working on now that we'll talk about later.
Okay.
These kind of things, which are just pictures, little stills of the story I wrote,
Uh-huh.
and you have an artist work on those, and the
Mhm.
artist works on those, and they start. Who's ever directing that starts circling the ones they like and crossing out the ones they want, and then it goes back to the writer to polish it to fit. And then it goes back to the artist to make a smooth storyboard. And then it goes to Animatic, which
Mhm.
is shooting the storyboard to the soundtrack you've recorded. You've
Mhm.
had your actors in the studio, you record them, you shoot the animatic, and then you send that to the animation studio, which for those two shows were overseas.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they
Warner
were
Brothers, yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask if they were in Korea because I know like Simpsons has been animating in Korea forever.
Yeah, we were Korea, and
Uh-huh.
we did everything. Korea, Philippines. I think we had some Chinese. We were doing. It's odd because the animation table, the original animation table, came
Mhm.
from the Bronx,
Uh-huh.
where I live now, and we would paint the cells. Every cell, we would have artists paint. Beautiful thing. In fact, I'm working with one of the original painters from way back, all the Disney movies, including Little Mermaid and Belle and all
Uh-huh.
that guy named Brian Seaburn. And he's the most amazing painter. Amazing. He did background paintings. They would paint every background by hand. And then it would paint every character movement piece by piece and
Right.
send those boxes of slides over to the studio, who would put it together and shoot it for less than we could have. Right?
Mhm.
We weren't equipped for animation here.
Right.
Nowadays, nobody paints nothing on paper or on cell or on anything. It's all done in the box.
Mhm.
And, you know, along comes Pixar and the world changed. And luckily enough, my two nephews worked for Pixar and did many of their movies, worked on them. So we hear, and the thing about it is that the humor of cartoons stays the same. The timing stays the same. It's
Mhm.
just the medium changes. And it's not different from puppets. It's not different from animation. It's not different from 3D animation. The heart and the beat and the tempo and the motion are all the same. It's different in live action because you can make up things as you go and you can do them right on the spot. You can't do that with this. Animation is locked.
Do you have any stories about working with Spielberg since you work with him on a
Oh, yes, I have a few. There was one time these two girls from the Midwest wrote an episode in their brain
Uh-huh.
for Tiny Toons,
Uh-huh.
and it landed at DreamWorks. Well, it wasn't DreamWorks, it was Amblin at the time.
Mhm.
And somehow somebody brought it up. It was like they had funny pictures of Babs Bunny and all that. And they brought it up to Steven, and Steven is all heart. He understands that element. And he said, yes. And he sent that to us. And we met with the kids, and we were all in this room. And we're creating a show around what these two preteens had created in the Midwest. And they were there, and it was exciting. And it turned into a show. Another Steven story, which is amazing, while he was shooting Schindler's List, which was
Uh-huh.
pretty dramatic, he would read every script for Animaniacs. Where he got the time, we don't know. But I would get notes back, Tom would get notes back, Sherry would get notes back from Steven.
Uh-huh.
Then we had to stamp it, approved by Steven. He was very involved in those shows.
Wow.
What, what can I tell you? It's a great business.
Mhm.
It's at every level. It's fun to watch. It's fun to do. And if you do live actions or you do photography or you paint, art is a given. Everybody can translate into some form of art, understand it, relate, and project.
That is beautiful. So then you did a lot of animation in the 90s. Like I printed out your
Yeah,
IMDb. You
lots of stuff.
Yeah, you got 5 pages here.
Yeah.
5-page IMDb.
And
And it's incredibly impressive. Like, so how did progressing within those shows in the 90s, how did that work? Like, did you do a lot of networking or was it small enough?
well, there were
Or
agents and managers that would switch in time. And I was
Mhm.
with Gotham Group, who got me a lot with Ellen Goldsmith. It
Oh,
was
okay.
just a really powerful time in animation with Birth and coming from two hit shows. Don't forget, we
Mhm.
won Emmy Awards with both shows at Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. We
Mhm.
won the Peabody Award, George Foster Peabody Award with Animaniacs, because in our context of slapstick humor, we not only had heart, but we had education,
Mhm.
little education. It was age 9 and up,
Mhm.
but we always kept the up higher than what you would think for a cartoon.
Mhm.
So high school kids and college kids liked them too. So we got a big audience. And from that, I found that people would call and say, you want to work on this show? You want to work on that show? Some of the shows never went anywhere.
Mhm.
Some of the shows, one of the shows I'm still working on started in 90, no, I'm sorry, in 99.
Mhm.
I started the first round of it. And then when I finished Warner Brothers, I went on tour to a animation festival in Wales,
Mhm.
the UK, and met some people from Hungary who took me to Hungary. And we started working on a show called Lily, which I'm still working on. Trouble is, these shows nowadays, there's so much. The secret is we have some brilliant shows, and I myself have in my crowd about 400 years of animation experience. All these folks.
Mhm.
We've aged out of Hollywood. Hollywood hasn't aged. You will learn. You will learn.
No, I'm aware. Like I have many actress friends who have told me about the aging out of Hollywood process, but you're saying that
They
there's an
they
aging.
get younger cheaper.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You get younger cheaper. And so, but Europe, so I did some things for Hungary, did some things for the BBC.
Mhm.
I did one thing for Germany with one of the Animaniacs writers, John McCann, who was one of our writers. And I, I worked on Casper and Mouseworks and Timon and Pumbaa for Disney. You
Mhm.
just sort of bounce around. Now I'm working on stuff that I find even more exciting. And then I'm working on a show that takes place way down in the bayous. Now the bayous is just down a river, but it's
Mhm.
it's a ragtag band of creatures, some living and some not.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like New Orleans, but without the hurricanes and without the
Mhm.
booze. Well, maybe the booze, but it's not the same way. But there is a lot of black magic in this show. It's called The Whodats.
Oh wow.
And right now we're seeking money. Money talks, and we make animation, seed money, and then production money. It's brilliant. It's a great show. I have Dan McHugh and I created it. Dan McHugh sent me a picture of a turtle he liked, and he
Mhm.
had some turtle doing this and turtle doing that, turtle in a football game getting clobbered because he thought a football was a friend of his. And from there, it built into this huge world. And
Mhm.
it's really, the artwork is just thrilling. I can show you, your people can't see it, but the
Mhm.
artwork is thrilling. I mean, it's colorful and it's magical.
Oh wow, that is
Here's
cool.
here's one of Dan's style pieces. You'll love this. It's the turtle going down river. Let me see if I can get it without reflection.
Oh
Turtle
wow.
floating down river when a
Yeah.
storm is forming, and it goes to a song called Lightning.
Yeah, that's incredible. So how long have you been working on that particular project?
We've been developing, Dan and I were developing alone for about a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
And then we started attracting some of the other people we've worked with. We'd say, hey, Dan and I are working on a thing, want to do some painting? And would you like to come up with some storyboards or some character designs, some turnarounds? One fellow, a guy named Ken Laramie, is making an animatic, which is more like smooth animation than animatic,
Right.
really creative stuff. And we're getting ready to start pitching. And pitching has changed. Used to go to a big studio to pitch. Now it's sort of like a rolling you fund me type of environment. Even with the HBOs and the Netflix and the Hulus, You go in with a project, they say, how are you going to pay for it? And well, we thought you would pay for it. No, you got to go out and find it. We'll air it and license it.
Oh,
And
so it's more
that's why you see the show on there. It's on Netflix, and it's a Netflix show, and then you see it on Hulu, or you then see it on HBO, and it's all licensed.
got
It's
it.
more complicated.
Interesting. Yeah, because I've heard that a lot from a lot of people that nowadays there's is funding animation or funding kids TV in general. It's there's just licensing deals and they're more like negative pickups rather than
That's
straight
right.
up financing. Yeah.
And soft money is coming in, and I don't like it, but that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
A few people get involved and they say, we know somebody who has money. We know a fund or a trust that wants to be spent in something that can make money. Animation is a good investment because if you got the right talent, you have somebody like Tom Ruger, or you have somebody like Dan McHugh, or any of these guys, it's a commodity. And
Mm-hmm.
so it not only sells for your initial channel
Mm-hmm.
or streaming service or YouTube, but also sells in different languages, because all you do is change, you dub animation all the time. That's how
Right.
it's done. I mean, I get royalties on songs I wrote from strangest places in South America, in Africa, and in Italy. They just translate everything and fit it in. So the mouths move the same. They put new words in. The show that I'm writing for Hungary, this is funny.
Mm-hmm.
I write it in English.
Uh-huh.
They translate it to Hungarian. They record it in Hungarian.
Mm-hmm.
And they think they're going to air it, because Hungary, you have to air in Hungary first. Then they're going to try to get it onto RTF, which is the rest of Europe. That means different languages. And finally to land as a series on the BBC4, which would be back in English. I can't wait to see how it's like a game of telephone, from each translation.
Yeah, and also like Europe, they speak. I think I heard this comes from an Eddie Izzard joke of all places, but in Europe they speak 200 languages. So does that mean they're going to translate into all of the major of those 200?
Into
And
the
then they
major
can,
ones,
yeah, and then they air it
dub
around
into
the world.
German, Spanish, Korean, into Chinese. We have. I think I saw in my BMI filing last month, it was a whole series of HBO, great show called A Little Curious, which was done by Sheila Nevins, the famous, unbelievable producer, and John Hoffman did a show called A Little Curious, which was multimedia. And it was played on HBO Family, and it was for prelingual kids. That means the audience rejuvenates every 2 years, right? Because after 2, they're watching regular cartoons. So they're watching these prelingual shows, and they keep playing back. Now it's being distributed around the world, and it's coming in from all over the place. And I'm surprised. Sometimes I'm stunned on where these things come. And even the movie that I did in 1977 is still playing in part or in whole somewhere. Yeah, I think so. But here's the deal. I never, ever thought I'd be there. I wanted to be an oceanographer. I just love boats. Going back to Mackinac Beach, I was on boats. I still own my own boat. My wife and I have a beautiful sailboat. We go sailing as much as we can. To me, that's the beauty, is being out away. So I had no idea where I was going. But because I made my surf films at age 14 and 15 and 16, I got a leg up into the film business. And that's when film had sprocket holes.
Yeah, now there's no holes. It's just
There's
bits
no
and
holes.
bytes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, you're still very active in the industry. You're still out there pitching your stuff. If you were to give advice to someone who wanted to get into kids TV, who wanted to produce kids TV today, what advice would you give them? How would you recommend they proceed?
I would say dig deep into your imagination and don't fall in love with anything you write or create. Just get it out there, whether it's a graffiti repeated or it's a postcard or it's a comic strip. Get it out there. If you write music, write songs for kids, write songs for teens, write songs. Just don't fall in love with it. That don't think you're ever gonna be a star. Just keep putting out. Just keep producing, keep churning it out, and look for your soul in it, and it will show up. And once you find it, it's a fountain. It's like taking a pipe and driving it into the ground, and out comes the wisdom, out comes the beauty, out comes the fluid motion of creativity. And it's all about that. Just create. If you want to get into animation and you want to be an animator, start drawing and draw the same thing 100 times in a different pose. Keep drawing. If you want to be in music, keep playing, keep writing it down. Record. There's so many programs allow you to multi-track record. You can be a symphony orchestra with a keyboard that's this big, which I will show you I still use often. Oops, I'm moving things around, which is that big.
Wow.
I'll have a whole symphony orchestra on that.
So you've gone the Robert Rodriguez route, where you've got everything in your studio and you're doing it all on your own, pretty much.
Yeah, well, I do music and I do words. I don't dare draw. I'm a terrible artist. I used to, be amazed at what these people do. And Dan McHugh starts in one corner and sees the perspective on a blank piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? What was that? He starts on one side and works across. And it's just, where did that come from? And I don't compare, but somehow I got engaged with that. And we bond. All these people, all these talents come together and they create these masterpieces. I mean, some of these shows you look back at some of these earlier shows that I was involved in, and they're just out of the blue beauties.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Disney shows, even, what was that? The one with all the ducks.
DuckTales?
DuckTales. Just inventive. Every show was inventive of the same character over and over doing different things. Oh. And that's what you do. You just keep writing. Just keep writing, just keep producing, just keep believing that you can do it. I would tell anybody, and I do show and talk to a lot of people, is that the hardest part is the blank page. After you start scribbling, it gets easier. You have to just start scribbling and something comes. You work on something for a day, you have something, a real tangible idea.
And that is Season 2, Episode 3 of the Producers Lounge podcast. Thank you to my guest, Nicholas Hollander, for joining us, and for discussing his show, The Whodats, which is in development now and actively seeking financing. You can find out more about him by checking out the show notes and visiting our website at greaterandgrander.com. Our intro and outro music today was The Dorian Menace by Dennis Mitchelltree. You can buy his work at dennismitchelltree.com. Our episode still image is from Warner Brothers Animation. If you have any questions or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the episode comments. You can stay up to date by following us on social media at the handle GreaterGrander, all one word. Join us next week for more cocktails and questions, and until then, keep producing dreams.